And joining me now is Justin Wolfers, President of Economics and Public Policy at the University of Michigan. Welcome, Justin. So President Trump warned of another Great Depression if courts strike down his use of emergency powers to justify his sweeping tariffs. What is your take on his claims? What is the possible fallout should courts find his tariffs illegal? I mean, let's start with the chaos, but what would the fallout be like?
Wow, it feels like it must be opposite day if the president says that eliminating his ability to impose Depression-era tariffs would be a problem. Look, it's true. Last time we had tariffs this high was the infamous Smoot-Hawley Act, the Depression-era Smoot-Hawley Act. And if that doesn't give you a hint about what this does, nothing else will. Look, tariffs are extraordinarily high. The legal issue here, I think, is actually very important, which is the power to levy tariffs. The Constitution very clearly gives that to the Congress. The Congress gave the White House limited powers, and the president is well out beyond that. To say that there's anything that could be done to create greater chaos in the globe right now around tariffs would be an exaggeration. And if the courts do provide some clarity, I think that would be very helpful. And more to the point, if they restore the power to levy tariffs back where the Constitution wants it, which is back with Congress, I think it might lead to more democratic policymaking as well.
You know, Trump has flip-flopped on tariff start dates. He's imposed hikes on a moment's notice. How much uncertainty is this creating across global markets? I mean, what are the challenges in, say, doing business with the U.S. right now? And do you think the dust is ever going to settle?
Yeah, so it's created enormous uncertainty. There's a few economic uncertainty measures that economists like me look at. And a couple of months ago, Trump had managed to create greater economic uncertainty than even the COVID virus, which is, if you think about it, a pretty extraordinary event. Now, it subsequently has happened that the only certainty in global trade right now is uncertainty. We're all starting to get a little bit used to it. Finally, 7 months into his term, or 10 months after he came down the golden escalator, President Trump has imposed his tariffs on the rest of the world, but almost immediately he started to move what those rates are and use them to bully other countries to get concessions in other domains and so on. And so it appears that even once he's got this new set of tariffs in, which they've been in place now for all of a day and a half, it looks like he's going to continue to raise and lower them according to his whims. And so the CEOs that I talk to are pretty much prepared for 4 more years of tremendous uncertainty when it comes to doing business with the rest of the world.
How about the average American? When does it kick in that they feel it?
That's a very good question, because the big headlines here have been going on from April and May and June and so on, but actually the big tariffs hadn't. See, there's a difference between a tariff announcement and the tariff reality, particularly with a president who continues to back off. So the tariff reality really did just kick in just yesterday. And so what that means is goods that got loaded into ships today are going to face these very high tariffs. Now, those goods are going to take a month to get to the United States, a week or two to get through customs, another week or two to get trucked to your local store, in which they'll enter the back room, and they may even take another month to hit the shelves. So already American companies are paying these much higher prices, the higher tariffs, but how long they'll take to filter through to the prices that you and I see, I expect we'll start to see that in the next couple of months.
Okay. Justin, thank you so much for your time.
Boy, this Donald Trump and these tariffs, boy, he about to bankrupt this bitch. I'll tell you, dude is crazy with this shit. Motherfucking prices are out of control, and he campaigned on bringing down prices on day one. And then just look at the type of shit he put on True Social. Look, let me pull this up. Trillions of dollars are being taken in on tariffs, which has been incredible for our country, its stock market, and its general wealth, and just about everything else. It has been proven that even at this late stage, tariffs have not caused inflation or any other problems for America other than massive amounts of cash pouring into our treasury coffers. Also, It has been shown that for the most part, consumers aren't even paying these tariffs. It is mostly companies and governments, many of them foreign, picking up the tabs. But David Solomon and Goldman Sachs refuse to give credit where credit is due. They made a bad prediction a long time ago on both the market repercussion and the tariffs themselves, and they were wrong, just like they were wrong about so much else. I think that David should go out and get himself a new economist, or maybe he ought to just focus on being a DJ and not bother running a major financial institution. Now you see the type of shit he put on on his little live social program. He say tariffs have not caused inflation. Like, bro, let me pull this shit up so I can show y'all the numbers off the Treasury website I looked at today. The spending, the revenue, the debt, and the deficit. Check this out. This from the fiscal data on treasury.gov. The first one is revenue. In fiscal year 2025, the federal government has collected 4.35 trillion in revenue. Spending in this year alone already, the government already spent $5.98 trillion. And you can see what a different color where it says 2024. Then you got the 5-year average from 2019 through 23. And then you got where the green is. This is Trump here. And as you can see, this motherfucker done spent billions. I'm talking about billions more than Biden had at this same time last year. And then we got the deficit, the amount by which spending exceeds revenue. $1.63 trillion in 2025 is referred to as deficit spending. So, like I say, you can look here, the spending. Look at the spending already. This is already 2025. This right here is the whole year of 2024. And we damn near to that already. Like, we got spending 5.98 trillion, revenue 4.35 trillion. Then the deficit is 1.63 trillion. Then you come down to the total debt. The deficit this year has contributed to a national debt of 36.92 trillion through July 2025. That means the national debt then went up already over $1 trillion and went up already. But hold on. Didn't y'all president say he was gonna bring prices down day one? Economy was gonna be booming, he said. Now, they collecting money off them tariffs, which they fuck around about to be in trouble for that soon. But they collecting money from them tariffs, so that's part that get added to the revenue. But at the same time, they done spent way more than they received in tariffs. So whoever thought Republicans was good with the economy, man, just delusional. They fooled you. You fell for it. Sorry.
All right. Well, hello, and thank you for joining us. We begin tonight with new insight on the cost of everyday goods. The Labor Department is reporting inflation rose at an annual pace of 2.7% last month. That is slightly better than what economists were expecting. And those numbers come as Americans are still hesitant about spending their money. A recent CBS News poll found 77% of adults do not plan on making a large purchase in the coming months. Earlier, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt urged Americans to ignore the critics of the president's economic agenda, even if those critics are Republicans themselves.
This administration continues to be wholeheartedly committed to putting more money back into the American people's pockets. Ignore the panicans and trust in President Trump. That is our motto here at the White House.
Now, President Trump is also denying his sweeping tariffs are weighing down the economy. In fact, writing on Truth Social, quote, tariffs have not caused inflation or any other problems for America other than massive amounts of cash pouring into our Treasury's coffers. Speaking of tariffs, last night the president extended the deadline for his trade team to negotiate a deal with China, and they now have until November 10th. The White House is also gearing up for a high-stakes meeting on the war in Ukraine. President Trump will meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska, and that'll be on Friday. Now, ahead of that meeting, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will take part in a virtual call with Trump and European leaders tomorrow. We are also monitoring a developing story out of Central Texas. Emergency crews are responding to a train derailment. This is near the town of Gordon. Officials are saying some of the cars are carrying hazardous materials. But we do begin with CBS News team coverage on President Trump and the economy. Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady is here with me on set in New York, and senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe is at the White House. Kelly, I'm going to start with you, though. Just going beyond the headline number that we're seeing, what does that inflation report today tell you about the cost of everyday goods these days?
So, look, I think broadly, as you mentioned, it was better than expected. 2.7% is still above the Federal Reserve's 2% target, but it wasn't something crazy. And that's really what everyone has been expecting and concerned about. And that's why the market finished significantly up. The thing that I want to highlight, though, is the big driver of why you didn't see that spike more is that energy prices were down. So gasoline, for example, was down 9.5% versus last year. But then when you strip out energy and food, you had the inflation rate, what we like to call the core inflation rate, that was above 3%. So again, what it tells you is prices are rising. They're not rising at the rate that we saw in summer of 2022 when inflation was at 9%. But folks have been dealing with this inflation problem for 5 years at this point, going back to the beginning of COVID.
Well, that being said, how much are President Trump's tariffs making an impact here in this report? I know that furniture prices have gone up a decent amount.
Yeah, so you see it in certain areas. Furniture is a really good example. So is footwear, motor vehicle parts, essentially things that you get overseas and you import them here and they're subject to an import tax. What we do know, though, is that businesses have been absorbing a lot of that cost. Exporters have lowered their costs, so it's not as much for American companies to pay. But the big question is when tariffs tick up, which we know that they did last week, at what point are we going to see that flow through the inflation rate? Probably the next 3 to 6 months.
Man, keep trying to tell people Trump is not where it's at with these tariffs, and he lucky that it didn't rise by that much. But you still got time. That shit is going to fucking rise, man. And then this motherfucker, he on True Social, doing what he usually do, lying like a bitch. But he made a post about the tariffs. And shit. So let's check it out. Trillions of dollars are being taken in on tariffs, which has been incredible for our country, its stock market, its general wealth, and just about everything else. It has been proven that even at this late stage, tariffs have not caused inflation or any other problems for America other than massive amounts of pouring into our country's coffers. Also, it has been shown that for the most part, consumers aren't even paying these tariffs. It is mostly companies and governments, many of them foreign, picking up the tabs. But David Solomon and Goldman Sachs refused to give credit where credit is due. They made a bad prediction a long time ago on both the market repercussion and the tariffs themselves, and they were wrong, just like they were wrong about so much else. I think that David should go out and get himself a new economist, or maybe he ought to just focus on being a DJ and not bother running a major financial institution.